Hello, everyone, and thank you for joining us today. My name is Robert Stickle. I'm also joined by my colleagues Jim Patterson and Paul Estabrooks. Jim and Paul will be today's presenters and will discuss the topic of what is the new role of the EPMO? Learn how to plot your journey to strategic portfolio management. This webinar is a new addition to our series of strategic portfolio management webinars, so if you enjoy this video, feel free to watch the others we have available on our channel and look towards the next installment, which we'll be releasing soon. And as always, I hope that today's presentation grants you some insight into the world of project and portfolio management and gets you excited for the new developments happening within the industry and here at OnePlan. Thank you again. I'll now turn the presentation over to Jim.
Thanks, Robert. Welcome, everybody. What is the new role of the EPMO? We're going to talk about that today and how OnePlan can assist in that journey. So if we look at the new role of the EPMO from an overview perspective, this is being studied quite a bit in this age of digital transformation and the move to digital business, even for more traditional brick and mortar companies. But analysts like the Gartner group are publishing studies and doing analysis on this. And they're saying the new role of the EPMO must evolve for us to succeed in this digital business age. And it's saying that strategic portfolio leaders can help enterprises achieve their ambitions by orchestrating continuous delivery and enhancing digital business acceleration. And the EPMO provides the structure required to ensure that strategic goals are achieved through management, governance, and enterprise-wide portfolio management. Prior Gartner and analyst studies have shown that there is a move or a trend these days from more departmental PMOs towards consolidation in more enterprise project management or program management offices. Now, the key findings, and I'll just go to some of the net that came out from Gartner, is that digital businesses that do not adopt strategic portfolio management, which is a core discipline that is executed on by these EPMOs, they're at risk of not creating tangible business value. Meaning, we'll talk about the perception of PMOs in a little bit and how they need to change in the course of the organization and how the PMOs themselves need to step up in order to facilitate these new roles. But part of the problem here is that a singular focus on just managing large transformation efforts and having misaligned reporting structures across different silos of the organization where different pieces of data may exist and different processes may exist. This has constrained enterprise program management offices or EPMOs from developing the necessary skills to drive the successful execution of these overarching organizational-wide business strategies. Also, because of this transformation and these changes, organizational change management capabilities are critical, and that EPMOs need to establish its value and importance in the enterprise by helping facilitate this successfully and doing it in a way that the organization can absorb. So recommendations that came out of the Gartner strategic roadmap for EPMOs is that one is the EPMO has to gauge the enterprise's level of interest, right? By describing the business value of the EPMO. This is not an administrative function. This is not a reporting structure. The business value that it can provide to the organization by ensuring strategy to execution alignment and to be able to orchestrate enterprise-wide execution across the entire business to help realize those strategies. We have to adopt and align effective PMO mandates, right? Specifically focusing on the achievement of enterprise-level objectives and desired outcomes, meaning we don't have different silos or different special interest groups within an organization. The organization is being tasked with many challenges these days, and be able to achieve those strategies and the outcomes that the organization wants overall is of paramount importance. The other thing is, because change happens so rapidly today and the market conditions and the catalysts change so frequently, there can be change fatigue in organizations, and the EPMO can be leveraged to support the reduction in change fatigue and help more consistently deliver business results incrementally and change the course or change the direction of the ship incrementally. So some assumptions that was made and observations made by Gartner regarding the shift towards SPM and the move to these changing roles of the EPMO is that by 2025, they project that 70% of digital investments will fail to deliver expected business outcomes due to the absence of an SPM, or Strategic Portfolio Management approach, which is embodied through the functions of an EPMO. By 2023, it says that 80% of organizations will have an EPMO that's focused on integrating digital projects and programs, meaning that consolidation of those different departmental PMOs and the somewhat fractured efforts that are going on through organizations today. By 2024, half of EPMOs will have the ability to rapidly sense and orchestrate changing conditions and become the central nervous system for an enterprise. It's a pretty bold statement, but what that's saying is if this EPMO realizes the vision that is espoused here today, that it can become the hub of this, it can become the catalyst, it can become the ability to facilitate navigating the organization from top down and bottom up through these changes and actually deliver the value and the things that the organization needs. By 2025, 50% of strategically focused EPMOs will be tasked with unification of fractal ecosystems, as I just described. And by 2024, 80% of digital businesses will integrate strategic portfolio management and execution technologies, meaning that strategic layer down through the people who are executing and delivering, and be able to adopt new frameworks and standards to achieve valued business outcome across the enterprise in a more integrated fashion. So some pretty bold projections here, and as you can see, they're not too far out into the future. So why should we be focusing on this? Why should we go along with this trend? Why should we move in this direction? Well, it's all about the threats and opportunities, because digital business leaders are generating, mostly through reaction to what's going on in the competitive marketplace and the landscape and the ecosystem that's out there, that there's a continuous flux of threats and opportunities with significant digital business implications, which can be life or death. You know, it could make us dinosaurs very quickly if we don't respond. And responding to these threats and opportunities often requires a significant amount of effort and cost, meaning there's programs and efforts that have to be put in place to make that happen, and processes. It also requires orchestration effectively and governance at scale, meaning we're not just looking at departmental projects, we're really looking at things that may impact the entire organization. And we have to make decisions and chart a course that basically pulls the entire organization in a common direction so that the organization can achieve its goals. Both of these things are provided by an effective PMO or a new modern PMO. Now, the key core EPMO functions, such as execution of large enterprise-wide initiatives, quick and effective portfolio prioritization, are very coveted capabilities for digital business success. And I would say one thing that's key in there is the old model of, prioritizing a bunch of large projects, making that my annual plan, say, for example, and then charting the course through that in a very static fashion and not revisiting it till the next annual operating plan is definitely not a formula for success for the new digital business. This is something that needs to be more continuous. It's something that has to be constantly gauged, and prioritization and responsive corrective action needs to be taken quickly so that we can take advantage of those opportunities or hold off those threats that we're facing. The challenge here is that many enterprises that even have an EPMO, that the EPMO may not have the right charter or the right mandate to support the things that are being described here. And it may not be positioned in the appropriate place within the organization. We'll talk a little bit about more of that coming up. But with the right strategic relationships in the organization and a core focus on achieving the business objectives and outcomes and positioning in the appropriate place in the enterprise, the EPMO can significantly improve the enterprise's ability to execute on this digital strategy, bring things together in a cohesive and unbiased way across the entire organization. So if we think about EPMO evolution, Gartner described it in these different stages of directive EPMO, an adaptive EPMO, and a dynamic EPMO. And if you think about the course in here, we go from maybe the more traditional PMO model that might be more departmental in its nature, the EPMO, which is more focused across the needs of the entire enterprise, and the SRO, for those that aren't familiar with that, really moving to a model where it's a strategic realization office that helps us realize the strategies that the organization and leadership has set out. So if we think about a strategic roadmap for the EPMO, why do we want to do these things? Well, enterprises are recognizing a widening gap between business strategy and enterprise-wide execution, meaning they may not be linked well, or they may not be aligned in a way that helps us make sure that what we're executing on is optimally bringing us to the strategy realization that we want. And it threatens our ability to succeed in this kind of volatile, ever-changing business climate that we're talking about. And when this gap is recognized, a PMO, wherever it sits in the enterprise, should be repurposed for enterprise-wide strategy to execution alignment first and foremost, something that might be just one of the early stages of that adaptive stage, but then really facilitate communication and decision-making and change management across the entire enterprise, both top-down from leadership and strategy down through execution levels and across different places horizontally in the organization. And repositioning the EPMO and where it sits organizationally and how it currently today might be aligned with either a CIO's office or a CFO's office only, might have to be rethought to provide the desired impacts and outcomes that you're looking for. So if we think about the future state, and I'm not going to go into history through litany, you are going to get a copy of these slides, but the future state and vision for this EPMO is that it's a strategic partner, not just an administrative function, that it will engage with business leaders and be in tune in communicating with ever-changing and modified strategies. And it's built 100% on enterprise ambitions, not departmental, not business unit function, and provides servant leadership. It's going to provide more of an advisory role to eliminate barriers, right? To provide common lines of communication and making sure that we're all kind of rowing in the same direction. And it's really going to be there to help businesses overcome challenges and building that network that everybody's in communication and moving in the same direction. And in the current state, there are some things that hinder those things. So notice the word lacks is there a few times. Might lack senior business leadership and support, right? Might lack identity, purpose, and value proposition. Maybe the vision for this may be somewhat limited. Might have limited or no engagement with key business leaders, right? Positioned in the wrong place in the organization, like we talked about. So the key is we got to get out of this old model and mindset and move into this more modern PMO mindset. So, a timeline. This is really meant to be just suggestive only, but the idea here is that you don't change course on a battleship, very quickly. You do it, a degree or a couple degrees at a time. And moving from that directive, adaptive, and dynamic, in this case, will show you that it may take multiple years to do that. And that directive is kind of the old, let's execute on the projects, let's report on those things, and let's facilitate and drive the delivery of projects, for example. Now, a directive EPMO, you define that based on the business needs, you identify the capabilities and roles that you need in the organization, and then you execute on that. Now, that's kind of a first stage, but we want to get beyond that to achieve this vision. In the next move into a more adaptive approach, we want to adopt more of a growth mindset and looking at it from a more enterprise function and look at high impact services that help achieve business outcomes in the realization of the strategies. And the key there is that strategic execution gaps need to be filled. We need to bridge the gaps between any political and data silos within organizations so that we can bring this all together to an enterprise focus and make sure that we have the skill sets to make that happen, which may be more than what we have in the EPMO today. And a dynamic EPMO really gets to where we are building this network from leadership down to the execution and across the different silos in the organization and different constituencies, and build that strong network and have solutions and systems and processes in place that help facilitate really being able to execute and adapt as situations change across an organization. Now, we talk about strategic portfolio management being the portfolio management approach that these EPMOs should execute on. And at a high level today, just want to talk about what that is. We've had our traditional PPM or project portfolio management that served us and really advanced organizations well over a number of years now. But the key here is to really integrate more than just the execution of project portfolios. We want to be able to provide enterprise-wide strategy to execution alignment and adaptation of that across the organization, and have SPM technology that supports more than just, here's our projects, what are the priority of those projects, how are we executing on those projects. It brings in more dimensions into the decision-making process. The mapping of these key portfolio elements or initiatives with alignment of things like business capabilities, investments, programs, our digital and physical products, applications and technologies we have in place, and then the projects themselves. These are all dimensions that factor into whether or not we should do something in the first place. And second of all, in relation to other things that we're considering, what should be the highest priority. And the key is that EPMO helps us do that organizational wide if we go into this more modern definition of an EPMO. So today we're going to talk about how OnePlan can help your organization move into a more strategic portfolio management mode and provide the tools and capabilities that will help this modern EPMO succeed. The ability here to incorporate strategy, incorporate execution, incorporate the technology and assets that are required and have to be considered in moving these things forward are things that OnePlan is designed to do. It has capabilities in there for the business leaders on the strategy side. It has tools for the execution leaders that have to really deliver on the projects and initiatives that it spawns. And then the factoring in of the technologies and the assets and the applications that we have to factor in order to make this work to provide the business capabilities or the outcomes that the organization desires. These are the things that we have to provide in order to be fully functional with a strategic portfolio management approach. And OnePlan's capabilities, Paul's going to show you a bunch of this today, but flexible portfolio planning and tracking and scenario modeling and what-if analysis, resource capacity planning, which is a key constraint, or financial planning and tracking, which is also another constraint we have to factor in, as well as the execution tools, whether it be work plans to execute on these things in detail, status reporting to make sure we have our finger on the pulse of this and see that we're tracking and that investment's going to deliver as promised, and then be able to track these things with either updates or timesheets or get feedback from the organizations and the people that are executing on these things, and having insights to help us understand where we have to actually apply extra efforts to get things back on track or things that might be missing or lagging. And the other key piece to here is, regardless of how you're executing on the projects, strategy has to factor into this. So for example, having tools in there to be able to execute on your strategy, define your strategies, your objectives, and the tangible key results that will demonstrate whether or not we're actually making tangible progress towards that objective, helps us to build a strategic execution plan to help us execute on those strategies, but also properly align them, as you can see with this diagram, with that project portfolio I was previously describing, such that we make sure that we're in alignment, making sure we're working on the right things, maybe even excluding things that don't even fit into the mix or align with any of our strategies at all. And a lot of these things require the integration with other tools and systems, whether it be software development tools or agile tools, whether it be other work management tools, whether it be your financial or ERP systems, whether it be ideation or request systems or service management systems. OnePlan also provides an integration hub to be able to provide out-of-the-box and productized connector service to make sure that those integrations happen, bringing that into a common strategic portfolio management hub. So with that, I'd like to turn it over to Paul Estabrooks, who's going to show you how some of these things work in action, how they're available to be realized by customers today.
All right, I'm going to use this demo almost a little bit as a walk down memory lane in a sense as we sort of work through this. And by that, I mean, I'm going to start with this view that I created to denote or to sort of be an example of a directive PMO, if you will. So bear with me a little bit. In this view, I wanted to take the approach that says, for many organizations that we work with, many of you perhaps watching this, where you've started this journey is as Gartner described, where it really was about managing projects, managing people that work on projects, and it was very PMO focused. And so you could see in this particular view, I got a whole bunch of projects, and we're managing those. We've got some status information, we've got budgets. And if I were to click through these, we'd see things like governance structures for stage gate models. There'd be some budget tracking. There'd certainly be a schedule. We might be doing timesheeting or resource management at that level. And so, there's a myriad of tools out there, Project Online, Project Server, others, where we've managed the PMO in the project. And that sort of has that directive feel to it, where we're trying to get our arms around that component. When we talk about adaptive, and we frequently do presentations on adaptive, so I'm going to switch to a different view and just expand it. What you start to see to come into play, a lot more tools on the left, but we see things like epics and projects. We see a program and portfolio model. Now that could have been certainly true in a traditional PMO, directive type model as well, but we start to expand that capability where we're now looking at a much broader array of work, and we're tapping into that enterprise scope and scale that Jim talked about in that roadmap, where we're now starting to see what's all the work we're doing and why are we doing it. And we're not just focused on sort of a business unit or a group within the organization called the PMO that does projects. Now it's a much broader interpretation of how we view work. And that's, when we talk about adaptive, we talk about this often, about tapping into all of those different methodologies and supporting them all. So agile, project delivery, very complex project delivery, as well as lightweight project delivery, and getting all of that here in the one place, in OnePlan, where we could still do that status reporting, but now we can look at our resource requirements across the whole organization, all that it might be working on. So I'll just click on resources for an example. Here's everything that IT needs and so forth, regardless of the methodology, regardless of sort of the type of project or where it's being done. So now we've expanded that. What we want to look at today is sort of where that next natural progression goes. And sort of, I've stayed here in OnePlan. I haven't clicked on a lot of things to get to here, but we've started with this sort of idea of a portfolio that can have programs and projects and so forth. But now, what else could we articulate? Jim showed a slide about strategy. So let's sort of start this little exploration here. What we want to accomplish from a dynamic implementation is an understanding of our business objectives and how we'll measure that we're achieving them and what we're doing to accomplish that. And so you'll see, as I demo this over the next sort of few minutes, a lot I'll stress around the linkages between strategy and projects, or strategy and initiatives, as well as enterprise architecture and initiatives, and enterprise architecture and strategy, that sort of that Venn diagram that Jim showed. So now I've got my objectives. If I drill into that, we have these OKRs, or rather the key results that make up OKRs. So now if I look at any one of these objectives, it has information about it. It also is linked to some key results. It's linked to some projects, and it might be linked to, in the enterprise architecture, it's linked in this case to a product. So we're now starting to create that linkage between, this is the overall business objective. We'll know we accomplished it because we'll achieve these key results, and we're doing these initiatives to get to there, and it's linked to and dependent upon or enabling, depending on the case, this particular product. So we've gone from just managing projects, making sure people are working on stuff, prioritizing as best we can, to adaptive, widening that view, to now linking all of this to why we do it, and being strategic in how we think about it, and understanding the push and pull and the interdependencies. So here we saw it at the objective level. I just jump out of that quickly. So now you can see at the key result level, we know that this particular key result is being accomplished through the completion of this particular initiative. They are linked in some manner or fashion. So now I've gone that layer deeper. This key result's linked to an objective. Accomplishing it will help achieve the objective, and this is the project or initiative we're going to do to get the key result we're looking for. So this is where, in our solution, just by enabling this capability, we help our customers sort of move up that roadmap. Now you can articulate and define that strategy corporately and start to understand what is it you're doing to accomplish, to achieve the results you want, to accomplish the goals you have. Why is this initiative important? Well, it's linked to these particular key results we need, and this particular objective we've set out that is important. Now we'll take a different lens and jump over to another area in the solution called my enterprise architecture. I'm just going to pick all types quickly. and expand that in the current architecture. So we have a few applications, some products, some capabilities, things we've defined in here that define that IT asset set. What are some applications we might have? We could then manage the life, the life of that application in terms of does it need to be replaced, does it need to be upgraded, is it being retired, and so forth. We can manage products. What are we doing? Capabilities. What is it that we do as an organization? What initiatives are we doing to make that better, to make that happen, and so forth. We might have value streams in here, might be another piece of this puzzle. But I can articulate those components. These enablers, these are the things that have to be in place, have to be invested in, have to be maintained, have to be sort of protected and managed in order to accomplish the objectives that we have. So if I click on one of these just quickly, now we start to see the linkage from the other side. This particular application is linked to a couple of objectives, and it's linked to some specific initiatives. So we know, like, if we have one here that's at risk, that has an impact on the whole thing all the way through. That might be impacting our ability, let's say, to roll out this particular upgrade. And if we don't roll that out, we can't accomplish the objective we have. So now we could see it from the asset side. What is the linkage we have? And so again, just by adding this capability and configuring it and building it to your organization's needs in terms of the data you want to track, you could start to advance up that roadmap or along that roadmap and up that diagram that Jim showed to the dynamic stage. Because now you understand the initiatives I do, what assets they impact, either they're introducing them to the organization or they are enhancing them or retiring and replacing them, whatever the case may be. And together, why are we doing that? Because of what objectives we're trying to accomplish. Now, if I come back to the portfolio, to my adaptive portfolio, and I jump into that project I saw a few minutes ago, and I'll jump over to the details page here. There's a new section in this detail page. Anyone who's used this product before, we've seen these other sections. This is stuff we've demoed in the past and lots of clients use. Go to standard information. What is the project and why are we doing it and so forth? But more importantly, the business case data, project schedule, some financials information. This particular one is a project, not an epic, so it's got that type of data. What's its overall health? How did it align to our strategy? And so forth. All that information. But there's this other section in here. And if I open up this section, there's the objectives that we're linked to for this particular initiative. Down below, these are the key results that this project will enable or will help accomplish. And we've split the budget across those 30, 50, 20, so that when we start to look at total investment in achieving a key result, we have an understanding of what that is. Furthermore, down below, we've got some associated applications, including that one I just looked at. And so a portion of this budget is being attributed to these applications to look at total cost of ownership. What does that app really cost as we continue to make investments with new modules, upgrades, and so forth? This project, a portion of its budget, is being attributed to the cost of the overall total cost of that particular application. And then you could see there's two products and so forth. I could connect this to value streams if I had them, or capabilities. All of these associations can be created so that as I make decisions around where I want to invest in my portfolio and where I'm going to direct my resources, I have a complete set line of visibility into the key results I'm impacting, the objectives that I'm impacting, as well as the assets that I'm impacting. So I can start to have some of those views. If I go here and I go to like a prioritization, I'll grab this particular one that I created. Now you can see I have my associated applications brought up, so I have full line of sight. As I start to make prioritization decisions in here, move projects up and down, I know which applications I might be impacting, or my associated objectives. Let me just widen that as well. I could see which objectives. Maybe I want to filter, and if I go and filter on an associated key result, there you go. This one has two particular ones in it. I can look for other ones that have other, another one. So now I know that these particular initiatives are touching some specific objectives, and I filtered on a specific key result so that I know, if someone said to me, this particular key result we got to accomplish, I can know right away, well, what are the projects that we are doing that do that? And let's say one of them here was on hold. Well, clearly, if it was, it better not be, or else we will not accomplish the key results in question because they're linked to each other. So I could start to make those informed, dynamic decisions. And as the organization evolves and the business world around us evolves, we have to react to new and changing circumstances, we can quickly see as we reprioritize our objectives and our key results, maybe add new key results, change the dimension of one, what projects, what initiatives and so forth are impacted by that? What ones maybe do we need to put on hold while we redevote our attention elsewhere? So I'll conclude some of this just by going to the dashboard. We've got a set of dashboards. Let me just jump into Power BI here quickly. We've added some new reports, and what I want to show is if I go and look at associated objectives, we've got this diagram. We have a series of different diagrams. You could flip this to a tree map if you'd like and see it in this manner, sunburst and so forth. I'm going to go back to this pie tree, but what I want to do is just pick in a specific objective. So if I want to grow our global corporate business, I can now look backwards very quickly. That's the objective, which projects are tied to it, which programs, and ultimately, which in this case, 2 portfolios are connected to it. So we've created this visibility. Likewise, if I go to applications, you'll see sort of this big spider's web diagram. But if I grab this one here, I think has best data. There you go. What are the projects that are touching or dealing with that particular application? And then what programs, and ultimately back to the 2 portfolios to best understand where does this all fit together. So similar views to what we have in the list view in the portfolio itself, but I'm pivoting this to give me some different looks at this. I can do decomposition trees as well and sort of see how this all fits together. What are the portfolios? Where are we? And you can see this through the bold. This is how we're getting here as we break that down. So we continue to add to these views because our goal here, as you mature through that exercise, is to get better and better visibility into the things that drive your organization. When someone says this is our objective and this is how we'll know we'll get there, this is how we'll know we will have achieved it, then you can understand in an EPMO leadership role what initiatives you need to devote attention to, what assets those are touching, working with IT leaders around the investment in those assets and making sure that they're on track and so forth as you collectively work to drive forward towards the business objectives that are laid out by leadership. And this gives you that visibility. So you've gone from managing projects and people to managing all activities in the organization, engaging audiences in different methodologies, to now engaging in the strategy of the organization and having that real-time dynamic understanding of the things that we're doing and their impact on our achievement of a strategy across that entire Venn diagram of IT assets, execution, and the leadership and the objectives and OKRs. With that, I'm just going to close up on where we are and some next steps. So in summary, this pace of change continues to widen, and what we see is from our organizations is that as a PMO or an EPMO, we need to change sort of that rethinking of that role and take on a greater role. We need to understand that alignment across those 3 pieces of the Venn diagram. Everything is becoming more dynamic. It's more agile in its orientation and how we address things. We have to be able to pivot and move quickly. What we just showed you with OnePlan is while we support people who are in the PPM space and are learning this and getting sort of some of that initial structure in, we talked to lots of customers around the adaptive who are trying to engage those disparate audiences, but we've built the solution and we continue to invest in the solution to guide you through that journey to that SPM place where Gartner is sort of encouraging everyone, saying this is where you need to get to really help your organization succeed. We have a very complete platform here on the Microsoft platform, leveraging the tools of choice to do execution, but delivering that higher level value and that linkage capability and the analytics that come with that to best understand how the projects and initiatives that you're doing link to strategy and which ones you need to do to enable and to accomplish what you're out to do. Okay, so the solution can evolve as you go down that roadmap. We are the Microsoft Partner of the Year for 2021 for PPM. We are worked with Gartner and Infotech and other analysts as we continue to sort of explore and communicate our value to the marketplace, and they're seeing that value and they're recognizing that in papers that they are publishing. We are all about helping our organizations transform, helping our customers, investing in your success to get you where you want to go. We have people and the expertise, we have processes in place to do that implementation, and we have a solution that helps you get there. We do lots of webinars. Today was on SPM and the roadmap. Next week is sort of the part 2 of this, if you will, is effective strategic portfolio management. So once you get there, how do you do it well? What does Gartner sort of advise on that? So we've looked at some of their research papers, and we're going to present some of that. We'll do a bit more demos as well as we continue to dive into this. And then we're working on webinars beyond that that will look at some other aspects of strategic portfolio management through to the rest of the month. If you do want to try any of this stuff, you could certainly get to our different solutions are available on AppSource. You can search for those different ones and explore and do a trial of OnePlan and play with some of the capabilities that I've just demonstrated in today's demo. We do offer workshops for our customers to help people plan out their objectives. So if you want to talk to us about a free workshop to help sort of construct what a roadmap might look for you, please reach out and we will happily engage you on that journey. You can get to us lots of different ways, contact at oneplan.ai or on our website. Certainly reach out if you want to do a trial, a roadmap, or I did a fairly quick and high-level demo today, but if you've got specific use cases you want to explore, reach out to Jim or I. Our email's going to come up on the next slide, and we will arrange to have a demo done by someone on our team or ourselves, depending on where you are, to help you on your journey and kind of go deeper in what we can do and discuss your specific requirements and circumstance. So thanks very much. We are thrilled to have had some of your time today. We appreciate that, and we look forward to seeing you in the future. With that, we'll conclude the webinar.